Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Focus for Thursday, March the 30th, 2023 at 12:12 p.m. Central Time. Today's Focus, a transgender shooter. A transgender shooter. Are we sure it was a transgender shooter? Are we sure? And even if it was a transgender shooter, what actually does that mean? And why is everyone focused on that? Now, you are very aware of the tragedy that happened in Nashville at a church school. 6 people were killed. 3 were children, I think, that were the age of, I think they were 9 years of age. And I think the adults were in their 60s. Horrible, disgusting, tragic, devastating, and raises so many questions. But the questions that people seem to be more focused on than anything else, instead of saying, well, how could we possibly stop this? Asking those hard theological questions about where was God and all those kinds of very difficult and uncomfortable questions. It seems that the narrative has shifted completely to transgender attacking Christians. Transgender attacking Christians. Christians are under attack by transgenders. Transgender ideology is going to bring about the death of millions of Christians. It's basically turned into that kind of narrative. And it bothers me that I even have to spend time today talking about this. It really does, especially having to talk about it because I feel like I have to speak to Christians about it. Look, those outside of Christianity, I obviously don't expect them to think biblically. I don't expect them to think theologically. I obviously expect that their ideology and my ideology is going to come into conflict. What bothers me sometimes, it's the Christian world that I'm looking at going, okay, I obviously don't belong in the Christian world either, because this is insanity, what is happening, and the way that what things Christians are saying, the things Christians are talking about. So let's just establish a very biblical, historical Christian position. The evil that men do, the evil that women do, the evil that anyone based off their sexual preference, their sexual identity, or their race, the evil that people do arises from their depraved nature, their sin nature. Evil actions arise from a sinful nature. That's where it comes from. But for some weird reason, we want to say, oh, someone, a blonde woman, was shoplifting. Well, you know how blonde people are. They're always shoplifting. Oh, someone of this race committed a crime. Well, you know how all the people of that race is. Oh, a straight guy who's, not gay, not transgender. He just shut up a school. Well, you know how straight people are. Like we always want to find some way to, I don't know what we want to do. Blame. We got to find some explanation. Oh, the explanation is their sexual identity. Their explanation is their race. Their explanation is the part of the country they're from. We always got to find it. No, the explanation from a biblical theological perspective is it is our depraved nature is the first and foremost it is the origin of all the problems. Is our sin nature from a theological and biblical perspective. Obviously, there can be other factors, but clearly it starts there. But for some reason, Christians forget that. So right now, the shooting in Nashville, no matter how tragic it was, young children, 9 years of age, dead, horrible, tragic. The adults who were killed, horrible, tragic. Instead of mourning and trying to say, what can we do in this country to possibly limit the number of people being shot and killed for going to school, for all the other things happening in our culture, we've got to start now blaming people, and we got to start blaming people's identity. And it's just really, really bizarre. But in this particular case, I'm even more confused because what do we actually know? What do we actually know? Look, I think Christians should understand that we see or evil originating from a sinful nature. But I also think Christians should be ones to go, wait a minute. Be slow to speak. Oh, wait, I think that's a biblical principle. Wait a minute. Let's put away lying. Let's speak the truth. Let's not engage in gossip and slander and bearing false witness. These are basic rules that govern the Christian's approach to any of these kinds of situations. Well, wait a minute. I'm going to be slow to speak. Wait a minute. I'm going to speak the truth. Wait a minute. I'm not going to gossip, slander. I'm not going to bear false witness. These are basic rules that govern how a Christian handles these situations. A Christian would look at it from a theological perspective, that the issue is the sinful nature is where all of the sin and evil arises from. That's the original source. But for some reason, Christians are running around engaging, well, they sound like they're Fox News more than they sound like they're Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which I'm constantly having to deal with within the Christian world. So the Nashville shooting has occurred. And immediately this is turned into an anti-trans narrative. This is all about someone who's supposedly transgender, and it's turning into that. And it is just crazy to watch. Conservative commentators and Republican politicians unleashed a new wave of, you could call it anti-trans rhetoric, or just turning it all into a trans narrative following the Monday shooting at a Nashville Christian school that killed 6 people, escalating a broader backlash to... Okay, I'm sorry. I was getting a message. I thought it was about this. All right, escalating a broader backlash to the rising visibility of transgender people in public life. The attempts on the right to connect violence to transgender people come even though transgender people are rarely perpetrators of mass shootings. And that's just a fact. Look at all the mass shootings and see how many people were transgender. And then look at how many people are just, in many cases, they're straight, cisgender, if you want to use that term, white men. So are white men, is that the problem? Do we have an epidemic of violence carried out by white men when it comes to mass shootings? Is that the direction we go? It's just so crazy that a shooting happens and immediately it's like, it's the identity of the shooter. That's what we're going to talk about. And whoa, wait a minute. Let's look at their pronouns. Let's look at their sexual preference. There's the reason. And but here we go. All right. So, but yeah, if you look at the numbers, transgender people are rarely the perpetrators of mass shootings, which are overwhelmingly carried out by cisgender men, according to criminal justice experts. And I believe most school shootings are definitely carried out by white males. And trans people are more likely to be victims of violence than cisgender people, multiple studies have shown. So in many cases, transgender tend to be victims of violence more than cisgender people, if I could say it. I mean, I watched this take place in the 1980s when I was a teenager, hearing that, teenagers would go to the gay club on a Friday or Saturday night, basically harassing, bullying, and in many cases physically assaulting people who were gay. And I stood against it then and would protect anybody that I could then, and I will stand against it now. Just because you don't agree with someone's lifestyle, you think it's a sin, you don't bully, harass, or attack. I mean, I don't know. I thought that was a pretty biblical Christian idea, right? Love even your enemies. I don't know. Maybe who knows? Maybe I'm reading some liberal Bible. I don't know. In Nashville, now here's the key. In Nashville, the shooter's gender identity and motive remain unclear. Police initially said the shooter, Audrey Hale, was a 28-year-old woman, and then later said Hale was a transgender, citing, now this is what was cited, a social media profile in which Hale used masculine pronouns. The Washington Post has not yet confirmed how Hale actually identified. Now, from my understanding, trying to look into this, it was social media. It was a LinkedIn account. Supposedly, it was Audrey Hell's LinkedIn account. Supposedly. Now, I'd have to, again, there's lots of information coming from all kinds of sources, and you got to try to go through all of the information to find what's true versus what's false. But here's the thing. Just because someone on a website, on a social media account, on a LinkedIn account decides to say, I want these to be my pronouns, doesn't make someone transgender. It doesn't make sometimes people will do that because they are showing what they feel to be, they're showing some kind of support for the transgender community. They're like, hey, I want my pronouns changed. They want to go against the societal norm, saying, no, this has to be your pronouns. And they're pushing back, or they're fighting against it. Whether you agree or disagree with what they're attempting to do, it doesn't make someone transgender. I could create a social media account and say, from this point forward, I want my pronouns to be they, them. I want my pronouns to be she, her. And guess what? That would not make me transgender. Okay, I don't know what people don't understand about that. Just because someone decides, I want these to be my pronouns, it doesn't make someone transgender. It doesn't. We don't know. At this point, there's still a lot of things we don't know. So first, before Christians start making accusations and claims that, hey, this was a transgender attacking Christianity, how about we slow down, we wait, we let the evidence comes out if the person was transgender, and if they targeted the Christian school because it was Christian, then by all means, we can condemn that attack upon Christianity. And we should, if that's the case. And I would condemn that if it was an attack upon Muslims, if it was an attack upon Buddhists, because I don't think anyone should be attacked because of their race, their religion, or their sexuality. I don't think anyone should be attacked. Now, we can disagree, and I can say, I think Islam is a false religion, but I don't want anyone being attacked. I can say that certain sexual preferences and acts are sinful, but that doesn't mean anyone should be attacked. But maybe we should wait before we start bearing false witness, before we start making claims. How about we just slow down and wait? Have you ever thought about that? How about we just see if Audrey Hell turns out to be, if they were truly transgender? Or, for some weird reason, and it appears it was only on one social media account, and appears the other social media accounts didn't do anything with the pronouns. It was just one. Maybe this was a person struggling with lots of issues, right? Maybe this was a person having some kind of mental health crisis. I don't know. Is that a possibility? Why is this turning into a never-ending fight over transgender? I don't understand why that's the path Christians are taking. And when I say Christians, obviously not all Christians, but many Christian articles and many within the Christian world are basically following kind of it's where many in the conservative Christian world always get their marching orders. We don't get our marching orders from Scripture. We get our marching orders from Fox News, Sean Hannity, right-wing talk show hosts. And I don't understand why Christians are more influenced by that than God himself. Now, I've also heard that the shooter had targeted other schools as well. Well, if they targeted other schools as well, then why this one? Well, the shooter has some connection, possibly attended this school when they were young. Did they hold some grudge against it because of the Christianity? I don't know. Those are all speculation. Now, once it's all comes out, then by all means, then we can speak. Once the facts come out, 15 minutes from now, right now as I'm speaking, facts may be coming out that will say, yes, this person was transgender, they hated Christians, that's why they attacked the Christian school. Then we can condemn it. I got no problem with that. In the meantime, we seem to have one social media profile, a single social media profile in which Hell used masculine pronouns. And they're like, well, they're transgender. According to one social media account or profile, one? I don't know. Did anyone in their family know that they identified as something else? Were they identifying as something else? Or is it something that we're trying to show some kind of solidarity to the transgender movement by saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to change my pronouns as well. I'm not going to let society tell me which pronouns I can use. Sometimes people try it for that kind of reason. It's just kind of like a rebellious kind of thing. It's like I'm not going to conform. You tell me I have to use these as my pronouns. Watch this. These are my pronouns. Do you realize that doesn't make someone transgender? They're just subverting the societal norms. Whether you agree or disagree, I mean, it doesn't make someone transgender. So could we wait and see this arguments? Nevertheless, what we do know, Fox News host Tucker Carlson featured a photo of the shooter superimposed with the words trans killer on his Tuesday show. We're witnessing the rise of trans violence, is what it said on the screen. Well, I mean, I don't know. Are we? Are we rising a rise of trans violence? Are we? I mean, like, there's so many things to look at. Are we seeing a rise in violence in society at large? Among straight people, gay people, trans people, Black, white, Spanish, Asian? Are we seeing a rise in violence across the board? Like, I mean, when you say there's a rise, do more people identify today as trans than did 2 years ago? Well, if more people identify as trans today than 2 years ago, when you have an increase in number of people who identify a certain way, guess what? Within that group, then now you're going to have a rise of violence because you have more people identifying that. That just makes sense, right? I don't know. There's no, we can't just be calm and rational and think these things through. I mean, can we just stop and just go, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about that? Why does everything have to turn into some grand narrative where it's like we got to sell everything with some kind of like, ooh, it's the rise of trans violence. This is the story. Trans violence. From a Christian perspective, it's the same story that's been going on. Let me make it very clear. After the fall, Cain kills Abel. Wasn't trans. Wasn't because of Hollywood. Wasn't because of Netflix. Wasn't because of video games. Wasn't because of Democrats. It's because a sinful nature now resided in those children, Cain and Abel. After the fall, they were now born sinners. Sin doesn't always matter. We all are totally depraved, but that depravity does not always manifest itself the same way in every person. It manifests itself in different ways. Now, then Marjorie Taylor Greene, oh boy, speculated on Twitter as well as during a congressional hearing that hormone treatment may have played a role in the shooting, even though there's no evidence the shooter was even on hormone therapy. Once again, it's just this crazy stuff. Now look, crazy Republicans saying crazy things. I just roll my eyes and like, whatever. I don't care. Like, I don't care about the Republican Party. Don't support the Republican Party. The whole thing is just crazy to me. But it's when it enters the church. So when the church sounds like Marjorie Taylor Greene, when the church sounds like Tucker Carlson, when the church starts talking that way, that's when I get concerned. If you go to, I believe it's the Christian Post. It says, despite the loss, now this is the Christian Post, they're upset with the liberal media. Despite the loss of 6 lives at a Christian elementary school, not one of the nation's biggest newspapers used the word Christian in their headlines for the mass shooting in Nashville earlier this week. So they're upset because the papers did not call it a Christian school. They're upset they just referred to it as a school, and they're like, so, it's a cover-up. All right. The shooter, later identified as Audrey Hell, 28 of Nashville, was a former student of the school and, according to this, self-identified as trans. Again, where do you get that they self-identified as trans? They identified as wanting to use different or being identified as different pronouns. It doesn't mean that they themselves said that they were how do Christians not understand this concept? I'm going to create a social media account. And I'm just going to start using pronouns where people can accuse me of being identified as trans. They're just pronouns. Okay? They don't change we don't know what was going on. Now, maybe the person did, but can we just wait? All right. So the Christian Post is all upset because they didn't say anything about being a Christian school. All right. So, all right. It says here, okay. So they go on to all of the art. They're so upset because they don't call it a Christian school. Other outlets like NBC avoided using the word trans or transgender in their headlines to describe the suspect. With a search of NBC News for the term yielding a number of older news stories with only 2 results to the shooting of March 28th. Neither of them used the word Christian or transgender in their headline. So, okay, they didn't use transgender or Christian. So you see what they're saying. Oh, wait. They don't want people to know it was a transgender person, and they didn't want people to know it's a Christian school. Well, first of all, do we know yet the person is transgender? Why they didn't describe it as a Christian school, I do not know that, and I'm more than willing to at least consider, I wonder why they didn't do that. I'm more than willing to at least consider that. Now, I would have to look. Now, I know initially when the shooting was going on and they were talking about the school, all the coverage was referring to it as a church-run school. They referred to it as a church-run school, is I think how they identified it. So I know at least all the initial reporting, because I watched it, definitely did not hide the fact that it was a church-run school. One of the NBC stories made only a passing mention of hell as being a trans identified, adding that officials are still determining if it played an actual role in the incident. The same article, however, also used the gender-neutral pronoun they for hell, a biological female, and suggested in its headline that resentment may have fueled the shootings. There's lots of speculation at the beginning. That's always the problem. There's wild-eyed speculation. Let the world speculate. Let the world jump to their conclusions. Let the world misrepresent. Let the world bear false witness. Let the world not get the story right. The church has to be the place where we're like, whoa, slow down. We're not going to bear false witness. We're not going to gossip. We're not going to slander. We're going to put away lying. We're going to speak the truth, and we're going to wait and see. And then once the information is out, then we will speak of it as we know. That's all I'm asking people to do. It's just wait. Just wait. And then once it's identified, if the person is identified as actually being transgender, if it's actually proven that they are, then we're like, okay, now they were transgender. Because they were transgender and it appears they attended a Christian school, did they have some resentment towards the school and the school's teaching on human sexuality, and it made them mad, and so they wanted to go after them? If that's the case, well, then that is horrible and tragic as well. And that needs to be then a part of the story, and that needs to be told. That someone who was transgender, who resented Christianity, attacked Christians and killed them for their teaching and for their doctrine. That's how it would have to be told, if that's proven to be the case. If it's not proven to be the case, then don't make that the narrative. CBS News initially reported the shootings took place at a private Christian school, and that the suspected shooter is also dead, before updating its tweet to clarify the outlet was still working to confirm Hell's gender identity. Yes, so many struggled with so how is this person to be identified? How is this person to be identified? Because one social media account appeared to use that they called for these pronouns, but we don't know enough about what was happening. As of March 29th, there was no mention of Hell's trans identity in CBS News lead story, instead referencing Hell's reported purchase of 7 firearms from 5 stores prior to Monday's attack. Now, Jack Hibbs, we've listened to some of his preaching, called the idea a propaganda. Jack Hibbs, founding pastor of Calvary Chapel, and we've lost connection. Hang on. We'll give it here a second. Okay, all right. I think we're back. Okay, good. All right. We had a brief interruption with the internet, but I think everything is good. I don't know how long we lost. So let me go back here. All right. So back to the Christian Post article. All right, good. How long, someone just said I'm back. How long were we off the air? There? I didn't notice it to just a second. Because I wasn't looking at the screen. If someone could tell me how long we're off the air, Can't believe this happens every once in a while. All right. But we'll get back to the story. All right. We'll get back to the story. Jack Hibbs. This is back to the Christian Post article because I'm trying to read. Okay. I said Jack Hibbs or Jack Hibbs. All right. Jack Hibbs. If I said Gibbs, I apologize. Jack Hibbs. All right. Jack Hibbs, founding pastor of Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills in Southern California, told the Christian Post that while we don't yet know if Christians were specifically targeted as in the shooting, it's clear that the mainstream media would prefer to portray Christians as a threat to LGBT people. Now, let me make it very clear. Yeah, not the Christian world at large. I don't think they are a threat to LGBTQ people. I don't think they are. But there are many within the Christian world who definitely come across in a very threatening way towards LGBTQ people. I mean, they harass, they yell, they scream, they show up and with their signs. And I've seen some pretty egregious examples of this nonsense. All right. Hibbs calls the idea a propaganda scheme rather than the reality because the Christian family really is the actual answer to bringing hope and love and comfort to the LGBTQ community. They keep saying LGBT. I was adding the rest, but LGBT community rather than the media spinning it as us being hostile. I agree. I hope that most Christians aren't hostile, but there are some who are very threatening in their rhetoric, very threatening in what they say. In fact, they almost relish in the fact that someone is transgender and they can scream at them that they're going to go to hell. Almost like it's just bizarre the way some Christians act. He also said that the media is responsible for fostering hostility towards Christians and Christianity in general. Now, again, Christians love the narrative that we're being persecuted. And I think, yeah, look, there's no question the world is hostile towards Christian teaching. I think we can agree on that. I really do believe the media is responsible for the genre of attitude and thinking. When in reality, if people would just calm down and look around, I see Christians loving, reaching out, and bringing hope to a section of people who have lost hope. And look, anywhere Christians are doing those things, I am absolutely in agreement with reaching out, showing love, and those types of things. All right. Of course, the Christian Post is upset that the Nashville shooting has not been referred to as a, I guess they want it to be referred to as a hate crime, that they're bothered that it hasn't been referred to as a hate crime as of yet. Look, if it needs to be classified as a hate crime, I'm all for that. But can we just wait and see until we know for sure? All right. Earlier in the day, let's see here. When the reporter noted that Senator Josh Hawley, a staunch conservative and prominent critic of the president, believed that Christians were targeted in the shooting, Biden replied, well, I probably don't then. After chuckling, he clarified that he was joking. I have no idea. Earlier in the day, Hawley wrote a letter to the FBI director urging them to investigate the shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville that killed 6 people, including 3 children, as a federal hate crime. Look, if it needs to be classified as a hate crime, then by all means, classify it as a hate crime if you need to. If Christians want it to be called a hate crime, call it a hate crime. I mean, the shooter's dead, so I don't really know, we need to make sure. We got to make sure it's a hate crime. I don't really know. I don't know what our motivation is there. Sometimes it's like, once again, when Christianity gets mixed with politics, everything becomes political. Hey, this has to be identified as a hate crime. Okay, the shooter's dead, so... okay, it's a hate crime. There you go. Do you feel better now? Does it make it better for the 3 children who are dead? Does that make it better for the 3 adults who are dead? Does that make it better for anyone? I don't know. But okay, if that's what we need to do, all right. Here's what I'm trying to say. I look. This is not the thing I want to talk about today. I'm just turning on the microphone, begging, pleading with Christians. Please don't let Fox News, right-wing conservative media, be the thing that influences you. As Christians, I beg and plead, do not let Democrats or left-leaning media be the thing that influences you. Let Scripture be the thing that guides you and directs you and gives you the way to handle and respond to these situations. Death occurred, horrible, tragic. We should all condemn it because it was a crime and people died. What we don't know right now is all of the details. What we know is this, is just because someone identifies a certain way does not draw a correlation between why they committed a crime. Straight people commit crime. Everyone commits crime. Gay people, everyone does, because we are sinners. Now, I don't know where this is all going to go. I don't know. I've tried to stay out of it a little bit. I did one podcast to address this initially, but it just seems like it won't stop. It's on Christian websites. It's everywhere. And so then I feel like I have to turn on the microphone and address it. It's the last thing I want to talk about today. So as Christians, can we just be calm and wait and see? And as the facts come out, address those facts in a calm, biblical manner, not one that is hijacked by politics, not one that is hijacked by fear and hyperbole. Let's just keep it calm and go. Shooting occurred. Another shooting. They keep occurring over and over and over and over. After every shooting, the same arguments happen. More guns, less guns, no guns. Okay, all that fighting never stops. Okay, more shootings are going to happen. This one, we add in the transgender part, and now we're off to the races. We have a new narrative to add to our story, so everyone's happy to get done with the other. Instead of arguing about guns, now we can argue about sexual identity and its connection with hate crimes, I guess, or its connection with violent crimes. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I haven't even got into all the conspiracies. Yeah. I know some of the conspiracy channels, and I try to keep up with a lot of the conspiracy world just because to see if it's going to come, how widespread it's going to become. I've already seen that some of the sites have already misidentified the shooter and blamed it on this person and this person and this person, and those people are coming out. We are not the shooter. I'm very much alive. Of course, it'll always come into, it's a false flag. It was carried out so that they can take away our guns. The take away our guns narrative, oh my goodness, it shows up as soon as a shooting occurs. They're coming for our guns. And then gun sales go through the roof. And then we add another 300,000 guns to America because we don't have enough guns yet, but because we need more guns. And so after every shooting, gun sales go through the roof, and then everyone starts yelling and screaming, they're coming to take away my gun. I don't know what I'm going to do. They're coming for my gun. I got to get more guns. I need more ammunition. Okay. So that we know that's coming, and then all the other conspiracies just start piling up. I've tried to avoid some of it because I just lose my mind. Look, and again, as long as those conspiracy channels are outside of Christianity, I'm all for it. Go tell all the stories you want. All what politicians say, I'm all for it. Just keep it out of Christianity. All I'm asking for is that the Christian world should always be the world that approaches these events, no matter what they are, from a radically different perspective. Our perspective should always sound like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Our perspective should always sound like it's the Bible, not that it sounds like all of these other perspectives. And that's what just drives me crazy. We sound just like everyone else. There's not any radical difference. Now, I don't know how this is all going to play out. I'm going to look really quick just to make sure I have my news feeds, following every story about the shooter. I'm trying to keep up with it just to see, because I was trying to wait and see what the actual facts were. That's what I was waiting for. Right now, some of the sites have moved on to other things because of the Russia arresting a Wall Street Journal reporter on spying charges. That right now seems to be starting to dominate everything. But, I just wanted to wait. That's what I wanted to do. It's just like do the initial report saying, hey, guys, this is the narrative everyone's going to follow. Don't get caught up in this narrative fight. And then when I started realizing the transgender thing was going to become the story, then I was like, I'm just going to wait and see. It shouldn't take long. It shouldn't take, that's one of the things that is frustrating me is, come on, it shouldn't take more than a little bit of time to go, there's no evidence this person ever identified as transgender other than the one social media account. I mean, come on. Talk to friends? No. Then talk to parents? No. Like, if nobody knows, did they go to hormone therapy? No. Did they go any surgical? So they did nothing to transition. They're not on hormone therapy. Well, then The best you got is, well, they, at one time, when they created a certain social media account, they wanted to be identified with different pronouns. That's a weak attempt if that's all we have. Now, if it's more, they went through hormone therapy, they went through this, they went through that, they went through surgical. Okay, then you can say, all right, obviously they were a person transitioning or had transitioned or wherever they were along that path. But for now, and again, I still don't know what that would ultimately mean. I still don't know what that would mean. I mean, if I go back through my life, every violent situation I ever found myself in, whether it was in bullying, physical attacks, assault, I mean, all the different fights I've been in my life, never have I ever was attacked by anyone who was homosexual or transgender. All of my fights happened by, in fact, 90% were always straight white guys. There may have been some people of different races in one situation where I got knocked out with a bar stool and someone tried to take a knife. Okay, that was in a club. So there may have been people, but there was everybody there clearly was, I've never had a problem. Never had a problem with anyone who was homosexual. Never had a problem with anyone who's transgender ever in my life, ever. So now, that doesn't prove anything. I know it doesn't prove anything because it's but the one thing is one shooter doesn't prove anything. Okay, it doesn't. All right. I don't know what else to say. This episode has been interrupted with a brief internet problem. We think it was only about 10 seconds. I'm going to go find it and see where that occurred. I don't know. I didn't get the timestamp. I'll try to figure out where it occurred. And if I need to modify it, I will delete out some of that silence so it doesn't mess anything up. All right. I don't know what else to say today. Today's focus, please just focus on how you're conducting yourself in regards to this situation. And you know what? I've been saying the same thing about every situation, whether it was COVID-19, it doesn't matter what it is. Christians, here's what guides us. Put away lying, speak the truth. So we avoid misinformation. We verify before we say anything. We do not gossip. We do not slander. We do not bear false witness. And we understand that the reality of the problems comes from depraved nature. Those are just that's like, the church nursery. That's like basic stuff. newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Unfortunately, this is your today's focus for Thursday, March the 30th, 2023 at 12:50 p.m. Central Time.